So this week, all the talk is about Fox News firing Tucker Carlson. And many have made a connection about, well, what does that have to do with that nearly $8 million settlement that Fox agreed to with Dominion-based voting systems about 1 week ago, based in Denver? Dominion sued Fox for spreading lies about voting machines in the 2020 election. After the settlement, lawyers discussed the lies targeting them and their hopes that the historic settlement will lead to change.
Well, that means our legal expert, Whitney Traylor, is joining us to talk about this $800 million settlement, which I think many people who were looking for some sort of accountability from Fox for what in court were lies felt that they didn't get their end of the bargain. Dominion got paid, but the actual, I think, comeuppance that many people were looking for had to do with the truth.
Well, that's very true, but at the same time, you have to consider they are writing a check for nearly $1 billion. So that's still, in many ways, the punishment. And that's a lot of times what lawyers will say in their closing arguments is the way to punish them is in the pocketbook. So that is one issue. But I agree with you that the issue here in the case, the heart of the defamation case, right, is that Dominion, Fox is saying Dominion was involved in this election fraud. So that means at trial, they would have had to prove this election fraud. And so why I would have liked to have seen that is because once and for all, we can say to everybody, the evidence was there. We had a trial of whether or not there was election fraud, and there wasn't. And Fox knew that. So that's partly why they settled, I believe.
Yeah, you mentioned punishment, but this was the compensatory side of it. There could have been much more awarded by a jury on the punishment angle of that as well, following the compensatory settlement, if there had been one.
Correct, the punitive damages, and then of course you have the cost of defense. In a trial, that they're spending probably, I don't know, 50 grand a day on all the lawyer when you count up all the lawyers, right? So you're talking about millions of dollars, but when we're nearly at $1 billion judgment, so does it really matter? But yeah, the idea of the cost of defense, the potential loss, and then of course all that public testimony that would be played on the news over and over
and
would
be there and exist forever.
Correct.
So I want your theory on this because it was so close to going to trial. I mean, this was that morning.
Yes.
So, and then they all of a sudden have this agreement. So who was pushing the hardest then? Was it Fox lawyers saying, come on, come on, let's not do this?
And it was probably both sides. And I'll tell you, I've been involved, I'm a trial lawyer, and I've had settlements when the jury was already impaneled. And I'll tell you, we're out in the hallway, the judge is saying, you all need to hurry up. The lawyers are super intense. It's a really intense situation. I can't even imagine the environment there because
bananas.
Right, so much was at stake.
Yeah, nothing like a deadline to get people talking. Hey, but let's talk about all that testimony and all this evidence, because it's still there and it will still be presented in some of these other cases. When you talk about Smartmatic and these other companies that are also going to trial. What impact does this have on those cases and on the whole breadth of journalism as we see it today?
Well, I think to answer the second part of the question, I think it's going to completely impact the 2024 elections and how it's reported, because the evidence here was that in the deposition testimony was that they knew some of this was false. They didn't want to say it, but they were appealing to their audience, and they knew that it was almost a show. So it calls into question the newsworthiness and the First Amendment arguments and everything else. So yeah, this is going to have an impact. Now, the deposition testimony, that won't be public, but that will be used in other trials because that was testimony given under oath, even though it might have been in a lawyer's office, it wasn't on the stand. That is still something that can be used to impeach them.
Yeah, those depositions still exist.
That's exactly.
Going to be used at the next, Smartmatic seems to be the next big one.
Yeah.
That's up for that.
And they're suing for $2.7 billion.
Well,
oh, Lordy.
We'll see how far that goes. We'll get a chance to talk to you about that as that moves closer to trial.
Sure.
It's always good to visit with you.
Or settlement.
Yeah, or settlement.
Right. Yeah.